It is the Great Gaza Showdown in UNGA. All eyes are on the New York, where more than 140 world leaders are set to meet for the annual United Nations General Assembly Summit, with a focus on the future of the Palestine and Gaza. Saudi Arabia and France are set to co-chair meetings on a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The French presidency said that the 10 countries would formally recognize Palestinian statehood during the summit. Britain, Canada, Australia and Portugal have officially recognized Palestine as an independent state. With this, the number of countries recognizing Palestine as a country is set to reach 150.
Écoutez, je voulais faire cette petite réaction parce que j'ai reçu depuis d'ailleurs des jours, des semaines, beaucoup de remarques, d'interpellations de votre part, parfois beaucoup de colère, de tristesse, quelquefois des encouragements sur évidemment la décision que nous avons prise et aussi la situation, avant tout la situation en ce moment à Gaza.
So this is a historic step and a moral step which we're taking alongside our allies to recognise the state of Palestine in order to keep the hope of the two-state solution alive at a time when there is a real risk that it is in peril as a result of the devastation in Gaza, the continued holding of hostages and the expansion of settlements.
Today, September 21st, 2025, the Portuguese state officially recognizes the state of Palestine. The Declaration of Recognition does not, however, erase the ongoing humanitarian catastrophe in the Gaza Strip. The Portuguese government has repeatedly and insistently condemned the restrictions on humanitarian aid. The situation of hunger caused the forced displacement of populations in the Gaza Strip.
At present, Palestine is recognized as a state by roughly 147 of the United Nations' 193 member states. With the British and the French recognition, Palestine will soon enjoy the support of 4 of the UN Security Council's 5 permanent members. China and Russia recognized Palestine in 1988. This will leave the US, Israel's strongest ally, in a minority of 1. Washington has recognized the Palestinian Authority, currently headed by Mahmoud Abbas, since its formation in the mid-90s. Since then, several presidents have expressed their support for the eventual creation of a Palestinian state. But under Donald Trump, US policy has leaned in favor of Israel. The wave of recognition represents a big departure from the long-standing Western position that the Palestinian statehood should emerge only as the outcome of the direct negotiation with Israel. That framework began losing momentum after the failure of the US-brokered peace talks in 2014. The Palestine Liberation Organization declared an independent Palestinian state in 1988. A large number of countries from Global South recognized it in the year that followed. Now let us look at India's relationship with Palestine. India's support for the Palestinian cause is an integral part of the nation's foreign policy. In 1974, India became the first non-Arab state to recognize the PLO. In 1988, India became one of the first countries to recognize the Palestinian state. In 1996, India opened the representative office in Gaza, which was later shifted to Ramallah in 2023. Last week, 193-member General Assembly adopted the resolution participation by the State of Palestine, with 145 nations voting in favor. America and Israel opposed the measure, while India was among those supporting it. The two-state solution, which now people are talking, is also a result of what is happening in the Gaza. The Hamas attack on Israel and the subsequent large force response by the Israeli security. The two-state solution is an internationally backed formula for the peace between Israel and Palestinians. It proposes an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza with East Jerusalem as its capital. It would exist alongside Israel. Israel rejects a two-state solution. It says any final settlement must be the result of negotiations with the Palestinians and statehood should not be a precondition. The Palestinian Authority backs a two-state solution, but Hamas does not, because it is opposed to the very existence of Israel. And PA in itself stands discredited in the part which is known as West Bank. And Hamas If elections are held, people say there might even win elections there, so it has become a bigger political force. Earlier efforts to settle the conflict saw Israel and Palestinian leaders sign a deal called the Oslo Peace Accord in 1993. This was intended to provide a framework for peace talks. However, the talks eventually collapsed, with each side blaming the other, and subsequently the assassination happened. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said that recognizing Palestine as an independent country is like rewarding terrorism. A Palestinian state will not be formed west of the Jordan River. He also said that his government has doubled Jewish settlement in the West Bank and will increase them further.
I have a clear message for those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the horrific massacre on October 7. You are giving a huge reward to terrorism. And I have another message for you. It will not happen. A Palestinian state will not be established west of the Jordan River. For years, I've prevented the establishment of this terrorist state, despite tremendous pressure both domestically and internationally. We did this with determination, and we did it with diplomatic wisdom. Moreover, we doubled Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria, and we will continue on this path. The response to the latest attempt to impose a terrorist state in the heart of our land will be given after my return from the United States. Wait for it.
Now let us look at the history of Israeli and Palestinian conflict and how the state of Israel was created. Britain took control of the area known as the Palestine in the World War I, following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire. Sykes-Picot Accord. The two men redrew the boundaries of West Asia. An Arab majority and a Jewish minority lived in Palestine, as well as other ethnic groups. Tensions between Jewish and the Arab population spiked after the Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which the UK agreed in principle to the establishment of a national home in the Palestine for the Jewish people. Between the 1920s and 40s, the number of Jews arriving grew, with many fleeing persecution in Europe because Hitler was killing Jews, putting them in the concentration camp. In 1947, the UN voted for Palestine to be split into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, which gave them 56% of the land. The Arab League rejected it. They argued the plan gave the Jews more of the land, even though their population was smaller. Britain decided to withdraw and handed over the problem to United Nations. Jewish leaders in Palestine declared an independent state known as Israel in May 1948, hours before the British rule ended. A day later, 5 Arab states attacked, and with the war ended, with Israel controlling 77% of the territory. Israel was recognized by the UN the following year. Some 7 lakh Palestinians fled or were driven from their homes, ending up in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, as well as in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank and East Jerusalem. In Arabic, it's known as Nakba, or the Big Disaster. On this issue, I'm joined by LAPH, Director International Relations, Israel Defense and Security Forum. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. Professor Scott Lucas, Professor International Politics, Clinton Institute, University College of Dublin, live from Dublin. Thank you, sir. And Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Let me straight away go to Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Sir, my question is very simple. Experts, they're of the view that the war should have a political solution, but the very political solution is being resisted. Why?
Thank you for having me, firstly. You asked a simple question, but any answer would have to be elliptical because there are strong narratives and counter narratives involved. The current situation dates back to 1967 war, Yom Kippur War, and 67 war, followed by 73's Yom Kippur War and the Camp David Agreement, following which we had Oslo Accord, and more or less a two-state solution was agreed to, and negotiations were held on the terms of the Palestine state being created. There was a wide difference, although Clinton administration tried very hard to bridge the gap between Yahud Barak and Yasser Arafat, but the distance remained unbridged. And that's where in year 2000, the last major negotiations between the two sides ended. And since then, we've had Gaza being withdrawn by Israel and Hamas taking it over from Al Fatah and settlement activity in West Bank, leading us to October 7, the brutal invasion and massacre and hostage taking and beginning of the Gaza war, which has uh, been ongoing and would complete 2 years next month.
Okay.
Now, with this narrative, one finds difficulty in either apportioning blames or suggesting solutions. I think the temperatures would have to come down on the battlefield, and some modicum of modus vivendi would have to be established before any negotiations for any sort of final settlement can take place.
Okay.
I think what is also involved here is the future of the Abraham Accord, because uh, these are uh, supposed to lead to normalization of the Middle East situation. And much would depend on how this pans out after this very eventful year, which has seen Israel fight uh, Lebanese Hezbollah, Iran, Yemen, and Yemen's Houthis, and so on.
Okay.
And we would need to wait
Okay.
till the dust settles down.
Okay. Ile, let me bring you in. Is peace possible without two-state solution? Do you think the solution for peace goes through a military operation? That's number one, Ile. And my second question is that why is there resistance? Because if you look at the history of conversation in context of bringing resolution, it's always about creating a sort of an independent, semi-independent, or a Palestine with its own identity.
So are you talking to me?
Yes, Ele,
Didn't catch that.
that's you.
Oh, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I didn't catch that, but I would say no. Peace will not go through any kind of two-state solution. When Israel was founded in 1948-49, Israel was founded. Yes, the UN did vote for a partition plan, but when 5 independent Arab nations attacked Israel, there was no one to support Israel other than Israel. Israel supported itself, achieved a ceasefire agreement, and that's why Israel was around. And from 49 to 1967, for 18 years, we essentially lived in a two-state solution environment. The West Bank, which now many countries, including India, want to recognize as a Palestinian state, was controlled by Jordan. No one at that point accused Jordan as occupying sovereign Palestinian land. And we continued and existed that way in a basically a two-state solution environment, and it did not achieve peace. We did not live in harmony. We did not achieve peace. There were attacks after attacks, eventually culminating in the Six-Day War in 1967, eventually then later on, the 1973 Yom Kippur War, war after war after war, until we find ourselves today. So the idea that there is going to now be some sort of peace by creating a Palestinian state, which has shown no interest in reforming, no interest in moderating, only supporting Hamas, supporting everything that is going on. They're not condemning October 7th. We are finding more and more terror entities within the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority. It is only moving towards more friction, not towards peace.
Ile, Is Israel conflating people of Palestine with the terrorist organization Hamas?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The people of Hamas are certainly governing in Gaza, but the people of the Palestinian Authority, the Fatah, which are just basically the same. They have the same attitudes, the same incitement, the same way they treat their people, the exact same thing, other than it's that they wear suits and ties. That's the only difference. And if you look at the level of just this past week, we've arrested over 75 terrorists in the West Bank area.